Tell me how you really feel, cause I just wanna build with you. Black girl, tell me how you really feel. I just wanna keep it real with you. Yeah, I wanna live better, eat better. I wanna love better, sleep better. Yeah, I wanna feel so aligned. Sublime. Sublime. I wanna live better, eat better. Sublime. One time for elevated rhymes, 2 times for showmanship, 3 times for black hands and land ownership. Revolution I bring to you where the ring bling to you. Nixie blues on war tunes, singing to you. I am the rebel without a pause, no applause. Trust me, I am Chuck D, getting mine off. Many fools, they clock watching my moves, and I needed a reappraisal of flavor. Took some time off now. Back Jesus, black fetus, slumbering unborn. Ark of the covenant, curtain untorn. I'm the rose that rose to Etch's prose and Rosetta Stone. Still yelling it through a megaphone. Always repping, baby, forever home. I ain't the pot calling the kettle black. I am the flame keeping the kettle warm. I'm to blame for the renaissance that's cold. I write and recite it with down feathers on. I love you, and write and recite it with down feathers on. That mean that shit cold. And I'm the coldest. Listen, this the message right here. Black boy, tell me how you really feel, cause I just wanna build with you. Black girl, tell me how you really feel. I wanna keep it real with you. I wanna live better, eat better. I wanna love better, sleep better. Yeah, I wanna feel so aligned. Sublime. Y'all give a round of applause to this band right now. When they tell me they want to feel the chords a little more,
Hello, hello, hello. What's up, family? Hope you all are well. I know you're wondering why my camera's on, but you know, we got a special guest, so I had to pop my camera on just for her. Tonight we'll be joined by the lovely Miss Courtney Michelle. Real quick before we get started, shout out to AH. Shout out to AH for becoming a channel member. Appreciate you, brother. As you can see, this stream chat is for members only. So if you're not a channel member, please consider becoming one. If you are not necessarily interested in becoming one, you can bypass that through super chats or by becoming a moderator. Excuse me. And we do that primarily, number one, to support the stream, support the channel, but also to just kind of filter out the nonsense. You know, here on We Need to Talk, we don't just talk to talk. We're actually trying to solve problems, trying to dive deeper into very complex and layered issues. So people who are invested, not just with their time, but also their dollars into what we're doing here, I have a great deal of trust with their ability to elevate the conversation in the chat. So, like I said, just either super chat, consider becoming a channel member. Also, Cash Apps as well really help what it is that we're doing here. The Cash App is just WNT Talk. Make sure you follow us on Instagram, TikTok. We're on everything. So, you know, your preferred social media account, just type in WNT Talk and we will pop right up. Paul, what's going on, brother? Afro, I see you. Say cool, what's going on, brother? E Black, what's going on, my man? But yeah, before we get started, just to kind of recap what's been going on recently. If you haven't seen, I posted an interview that I did with Dr. Tiesan Johnson. I actually went to Fresno, California. He and I did a sit down and we talked about a lot of stuff, right? And I had the random idea to frame it around how can we package the black male disposition, the black male experience, the black male, I guess, issues that are specific to us in a way that's going to be digestible for women. So we kind of use the format where he explained black male studies at 5 different levels, starting with what's going to be digestible for young black girls, then what's going to be digestible for teenage girls, young women, older women, mothers, academics. So please check that out. It is doing a lot better than I anticipated. What I've kind of found in this YouTube game is like quality doesn't always translate to exposure, right? But this is one that took time, took energy, took effort, took dollars to make happen, and it's actually moving. So I'm excited about that. So if you haven't already checked that out, please consider doing so. Other than that, I've still been doing the case study thing, trying to use some current events to not only help grow the channel, because that's what the algorithm likes, but also to kind of consolidate some of the things that we talk about in interviews, we talk about on live streams, in a way that's consumable for the masses. So make sure you check that out. I recently started another series called Revised, where I go pretty much respond to long form content. So the last one that I did was the lady from Sisters. I think her name's Crystal something, but she talked about dating after 40. So yeah, I did a breakdown on that. Courtney Michelle actually did a breakdown as well. So make sure you check hers out as well. Afro Disciple, appreciate you, brother. It doesn't want to pop up. Appreciate you, brother. Say cool. Appreciate you as well, man. And like I said, I really appreciate you brothers being here. I really appreciate you brothers thinking enough of what I'm doing here to donate and contribute. Because to keep this thing afloat is not easy. So every like, every share, every donation, it really goes a long way. So I appreciate y'all. Tonight, the conversation I'll be having with Courtney Michelle is going to be about primetime Deion Sanders, but less about the man specifically and more about kind of the concept of black male audacity. Or at least that's where I'm going to be coming from. But yeah, without further ado, let me bring up my lovely guest. She's wearing pink tonight, which is close to red, but it's not red. Miss Courtney Michelle. Hey, darling.
Hey, sweetums.
How you
Hi,
doing?
Idra.
That's good. That's good.
I love your hair.
Yeah,
Look at you. What's going on? You twisting it up? What's going
this
on?
is my second attempt to grow my hair. I had hair before.
You had hair before.
Yeah, I had hair before. I cut it when I started boxing because I didn't want to, be messing with it every day or every week. And then now I'm like, let me try it again before I go bald. But eventually I'm gonna go bald. I see the telltale signs. Eventually it happens.
Is it receding a little bit? Let me see this.
Yeah. It's receding. It's receding.
You
but,
know, just FYI, genetically, you get your hairline from your mother's side. So you have to look at your mom's dad hair.
How do you even find that information? Like what you were
genetics.
probably up at 4 a.m.
You know how I
Googling
do.
random shit. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I know random stuff because I'll be up in the morning, 4-3. You know I don't sleep.
Okay. Well,
So look
it
at your
is what it
mom's
is.
dad, and that's gonna be your hairline.
I don't have I seen a picture. So a lot of my grandparents, except for one, died before I was born. So I never actually met them, and a lot of the pictures were left in Nigeria. So I couldn't even tell you describe what my mom's parents look like.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna have to
search and find. I'm about to tell you.
I'm gonna have to look into that. But how are you? What's going on? What's new? What's popping? You haven't been on the channel in a while, so tell the people.
I know. I feel like it's been a long time.
Yeah.
But just living, loving life. That's it.
A lot of people at a certain point, and you know what point I'm talking about, they reached out to me and said, "Is everything okay with Courtney?" In hindsight, how would you recap that period? What happened? What was it that you had seen in the space that particularly pushed you over the edge? And like, where are you now mentally?
Oh, what? You didn't tell me that. I know you
Oh
reached
yeah,
out to me. Was
oh
like,
yeah,
what the hell's going on?
yeah.
But
It was a lot of people. I ain't gonna lie. It was
really,
a lot of people. Yep.
you didn't tell me that.
I, at the time, I didn't want to overwhelm you. I just wanted to kind of focus on getting from you what was going on and how we could solve the problem. But yeah,
Hmm.
a few people reached out to me. Even people you hadn't met were like, "Yo, what's going on with Courtney?" So yeah, talk to him.
Okay. Well, I don't know if something's going wrong with me. I just think that you didn't have to do this. Okay,
You know how I do.
so I, have been in this particular space for a while, and I just kept seeing things. Um, how can I felt like I was brainwashed. I felt like I let red pill brainwash me, and me kind of realizing the people that are speaking in this space is absolutely fake, that they don't believe what they say. Um, I started getting pissed off. And so a lot of my thing came out of anger because I felt like I was brainwashed a little bit in believing something and then realizing that some of the stuff that I believed in wasn't true. I feel like that being in this space made me feel like um made me feel less than. It made me feel bad about myself being 40, being a mother. I literally drunk the Kool-Aid, and I felt for a long period of time that no one would want me. Uh, I felt like I wasn't worthy of a good man because of my age, because I have a daughter. And then I had to get outside and it was like, no, Courtney, you are worthy of love. You do deserve a good man because you're a good woman. And being in space, like I said, I felt so down on myself. And I don't want to be, I don't, I'm not red pill. I can't stand the space. I think it's a sham. But I don't want to contribute to women feeling like um, it's over for them. It might look different how you move, but love can happen, relationships can happen. So yeah, so I was pissed off. So that's what happened to me.
Was there a specific thing, a specific creator, a specific group of creators, or a specific pattern that you saw that kind of pushed you over the edge?
Um, wh- Hell yeah, Obsidian, his bitch ass, absolutely. He's a sham. And once I start realizing and listening and knowing people that know him in real life, and even the stuff that Kevin Samuels used to tell me about him, I used to be like, "You're absolutely right." So he was one of them. But all the Black Manosphere guys are living a whole fucking lie. They tell you not to date baby mamas, but all of them was with one. Okay. They tell you this, they all are. They don't want you, all these women and stuff, but they're in relationships with single parent. And it just was a lie. And just to see people making money, taking advantage of men that really need to, that's really looking for answers. And
Right.
they're looking for answers in men that are lying to them. Even in the white part with the just pearly things and how she's a complete scam artist telling all the men what type of woman to get, and she's the exact woman that she's telling men not to be with. It's
Right.
like it just was a eye opener. So yeah, I was pissed off and I wanted to smoke with everybody,
Yeah.
but I have calmed down
That's good.
a little bit.
A
You
little
know, I'm a
bit.
little feisty still
No,
though.
I understand. I understand. So, what is your focus now? Because I know you've kind of gone away from the Manosphere stuff, collaborating with Manosphere creators, other than like O'Shea. What do you think your focus is now?
Um, well, the stuff that I do, like I said, I haven't really done any lives because
Mm,
my focus is in, off the internet. My life is off the internet. So some of the
right.
stuff that I post, it is, like you said, dating after 40, that's important to me because again of my age and being realistic about things like that. But I don't want to keep bashing. So I'm not here trying to say, oh, black women are all this and black men are all this. Fuck that. No, I'm not. I'm
Mm,
just talking in general and stuff that is helpful. I did something about you know, the soft girl era, but this woman said some 10 points that is her being softer. But I loved it because she's married with children. And even in her
mm,
marriage, she's like, I want to be softer in my marriage. So it's still like that essence of being in a relationship and being a woman that's married but still understanding that it's some stuff that she has to still change to
right.
maintain and to keep a happy home. So that's stuff that I'm kind of focused on, stuff that I think matters. And I'm not into this bashing and fighting
Mm,
no more. I don't want to fight you. And I'm not going to continuously put out content to make us look like shit. I think we're amazing.
facts.
Yeah.
Facts. And a lot of people think you're amazing, Courtney. So
They
the
don't, they
energy
don't, they don't, they don't.
it's reciprocated. Trust me, I know. But so what do you think? What do you think should be the future of this space? Right. So when the obsidians and the angry people are kind of over the hill, where do you think the space should go? Just in your opinion.
Um, I was watching this he's a pastor, but he's also a dating coach and he's been married for over almost 3 decades.
RC
And I
RC
can't
Blake's.
he's from Atlanta. He went to Morehouse, he's light skinned and
Oh,
I
he's
don't
not
know.
light
I
skinned.
have to
Mm,
put it up. No, he's not light skinned.
mm,
So I've been watching kind of like stuff like that. And for me, I think we need to move on to how can we really be together? What does that look
mm,
like? How can we maintain relationships? How can we be the person that is proud to be, on someone's arm? So, as far as a woman, I want to be proud that my man has me on his arm. So, what does that look like?
mm,
As a man, I want men to be like, man, yeah, I want a good woman. How am I gonna make myself the best man ever for her? Like that
mm,
stuff. I just want to move in something positive more on focus on us really being together. This fighting shit, it's just worn out. How long are you gonna talk about women ain't submissive? How
right.
long?
Yeah. No,
How
I agree
long are
with
you
you.
gonna talk about I want fit, feminine, friendly? How long?
Mm,
Let's let's move on because we're getting older
mm,
and just realizing I don't know, like I said, being 40, I've lost a lot of friends at my age.
mm,
Heart attacks, strokes, deleting themselves. And life is just too short to be fighting one another. And I
mm.
just want to focus on how can we get back to loving each other. So that's what I would love to see this. Like, bitch, I love you. Okay, this how we're gonna work. I need talk
Right.
to me a little more. I
Right.
want to be a little bit more vulnerable to you, bitch. Come on, that's what
Mm,
I want to talk about.
yeah. The Crystal Hayslip video
Hmm.
that you did a reaction to. You and her kind of have a few things in common.
Hmm.
What was kind of your because that video I think is almost at 1 million views as far as her video,
Yeah.
and then a lot of people have been talking about it. What was kind of your synopsis of
Well,
what she was saying, the issues that she was having, and the whole nine?
hold on. Why do you, what do we have in common? Let me ask that first.
You guys are both good looking.
What?
You you both, are the same age.
Right.
Well, she lives in Atlanta. You used to live in Atlanta.
I
Just
understand.
stuff like that. So, like,
Yeah.
what you think is general takeaway? Because I had some things to say, but you had different things to say. But what was your general takeaway?
Um, I think that, and this also goes into the whole Tyler Perry thing and what he's been, his backlash, right?
Yeah.
And funny because he said it on her show when he said women are need to settle or whatever. Um, I think when you hit a particular age, especially at 40, and not saying that you are just making six figures, but you have a decent job and you're able to um, take care of yourself financially, a lot of women feel as if they don't need a man. And she doesn't feel like she needs a man. She just wants a man because, quite frankly, she's lonely. Um, so a lot of us look at men as, I said in that show, an accessory. As if you're not needed, I can take care of all my bills, so I don't necessarily need you. I just want you to be there. Um, I think where she's getting it wrong, and a lot of us are getting it wrong, is that essence of not needing a man. Why in the world would a man want to be with you if you don't need him? And if a woman was told that, if a man told her, I don't need you, bitch, I just want you here. I just need a little summer at late night, baby. That's all I want you for. It's like you would feel like shit. So we feel that way. Why would you not think that a man would feel that way? And I'm just saying, even to her and to other people of my age, just because you're 40 and you can take care of your bills, that's not living.
Right.
You need someone. What happens when something happens to you? Again, you get this age, you see people passing, you see people getting sick. Aren't you tired of your emergency number being your mama? You need a man. Men need a woman in their life. And again, like I said, I'm not going through this life uh, by myself because that's not living. My life is meant to be with a husband, to travel, to love, to laugh. And that's it. But she has to get, she's in her own way, and a lot of us get in our own way.
Absolutely. Afro Disciple makes a really good point, in my opinion. He says, can we get at least 5 to 10 years to speak our mind? We had to listen to black women for over 5 decades. How
You
would
know,
you
it's
respond to that?
because it's funny. I think that that's a red pill manosphere talking point. Um, People would say, you had Ricky Lake, you had this. No, we didn't. Ricky Lake, Sally Jesse, all of them made black people look a damn fool. It wasn't women speaking. Women looked pathetic. Black women looked pathetic on those shows. So that's not true. Well, you had Oprah. Well, let's look at statistically what Oprah had. 77% of Oprah viewers was white women over 40 making a median of 70K. So black women was not watching Oprah Winfrey. As a matter of fact, it came on 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. What black woman working in the 80s and 90s had 3 or 4 afternoon at home sitting down? No, we had jobs, we worked, we had children to take care of. So that's not true either. So again, this is a talking point. Black women, we had uh, the beauty salons, just like men had the barbershop. There was never a legit platform that black women just had grievances. We had movies that was directed and produced by black men. Tyler Perry, black man. Spike Lee. So we didn't. It is a lie. It is a talking point. And that's what I have to say about that. It's an absolute lie. TLC had no scrubs. Did it specifically say black men in no scrubs? No. It didn't talk about that. As a matter of fact, TLC became popular because white women was buying their music. So again, it is a talking point, but it's a lie because it's not true. Black people have been looking an absolute fool of decades off media, and we still do.
So, do you think there is any validity at all to
Let me say
the?
this because I see
Go ahead.
something. The color purple. One movie. One movie. So we're basing black women had so much to say about black men off one movie. The color purple is all that you got to say. As if black women in the color purple look good. Seeley, Miss Seeley. That's why I can't stand this space. It's just talking points. One movie. But yet you had a whole show, BET Uncut, that showed black women being sluts and whores and credit cards split down their ass.
This is what I say, because me and you, we've had this conversation. Well, a little bit. We've had a little bit of this conversation, but I think your points are valid. However, I do also think, starting with Reconstruction, there was a concerted effort before the movies, before the TV shows, before Oprah and the whole nine, to vilify black men. And then when we get into the 70s and the 80s, the crack epidemic, kicking black men out of the house for welfare, I think because of those things that were already done, some of the subtle jabs that came with reality shows and it came with talk shows and the whole nine kind of re-emphasize the whole niggas ain't shit narrative, right? So I'm not a fan of, because that happened to us, we should do that to black women. However, I do think that it's important that in the mainstream, black men's honest thoughts are finally represented. So, for instance, I was just watching Girlfriends, right? and I thought to myself, random, right? I thought to myself, it was an episode where Tony, she cheated on her boyfriend and gave him chlamydia, right? And then lied about it and the whole nine. The other dude was trying to propose the whole nine. And I was like, yo, how would a male version of this be received? How would a a show of men being dirty and grimy, but explaining it away with their sexuality, how would that go over in pop culture? And the reality is it wouldn't, right? But women are allowed and even celebrated for all the textures and colors that come along, the good, bad, and the ugly. And I think what the manosphere is representing is, even though we or we shouldn't go in that direction, just like to overcorrect, there are going to be some growing pains. Like the fresh and fits are going to be part of the consequence of men not being able to speak at all, especially black men not being able to speak at all. And I think as we're moving in a positive direction, ultimately, we have to kind of expect some of the bullshit along the way.
Let me say this because we're talking about media. So who spends money?
Women.
So things are going to get geared to the demographic that spends money. If there was a show about black men's grievances, would black men go and fund it?
Well, so that's been part of my point, right?
But that's what. But yes or no?
Right. That's my point has
What's
been.
the answer? Yes or
I'm
no?
gonna get to it.
Okay.
My point in the manosphere has kind of been, if we're serious about some of these problems, if we're serious about solutions, we need to consolidate our message and also consolidate our resources, whether that's Nate Parker, whether that's actually, again, getting one band, one sound with what we're trying to do. But because we're so fractured and we're all over the place, there's Fresh and Fit on this side, MTR on that side, and nothing is actually going to get done. Because to your point, the narrative is shaped by money. And
Absolutely.
even though it's not necessarily in women's benefit, some of the things that they spend money on, to your point, like some of these raunchy songs by Sexy Red and the whole nine, they're being written by men. Some of these movies, Waiting to Exhale, they're being produced by
By
men, black
men.
men. But it's because that's what's lucrative. So at the very same time, when black men are complaining about it, I'm trying to make the point of, well, we're part of the machine, and if we want different, we have to fund different and we have to support different. But even using the manosphere as an example, we see the creators who get the support and we see the creators who don't, right? So we get
Yeah.
stuck in this cycle of just complaining, which is why I think what you're saying has some validity to it. However, I think women should also have some grace for some of the bullshit and understand that it's part of the growing pains. It's part of how suppressed, whether rightfully or wrongly, how suppressed a lot of black men in particular feel.
Okay. Well, like I said, I'll say this. I think everyone needs an avenue to vent.
Right.
I think that this space is not about grievances. I think it's about get back.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of men that are upset and want get back. So therefore, you will see the biggest audiences or the biggest YouTubers in this space. It's not about male empowerment. It's not about men talking about money and fitness or how to be the best version of you. It's about shitting on women.
Mm-hmm.
It is about fresh and fit. Let's bring whores on and let's dog them the fuck out. And every super chat is to super chat and talking shit about them. And if that's what venting is, if that's what men need is a space to just talk shit about women, then for me it's like, well, what does that say? Even with this thing, can we get at least 5 to 10 years to speak our mind? It's like women has been doing it. How come we can't do it? So you want to be like women, but then you want to be leaders. How can you lead and want it to be respected as a leader, but yet want to do what women do?
I will say this at the very same time. So, for instance, there's a clip on Instagram that I put out. It's a clip from one of the table episodes, and basically, I made the point that we spend too much time and energy blaming our deadbeat dads for how things turned out in life. And a lot of times it's because our moms told us or taught us to blame our deadbeat dad, but no blame goes to our mom. No blame goes to her for picking him. No blame goes to her for a lot of the bullshit that she did and the whole nine. So the clip was probably 1 minute and 30 seconds. I guarantee you most people only watched 10 seconds of it, and they were already commenting. You should be happy she didn't swallow you. You ungrateful, this and that. And I bring that up because as a whole, not just in the black community, but we don't know how to criticize women.
Yeah.
Right? We don't know how to hold women accountable. We don't know how to persecute women, or prosecute women, I'm sorry. And unfortunately, because of that, a lot of the productive conversation sometimes gets lumped into the unproductive conversation because sometimes it sounds the same, right? So as women, I guess what I would like to see is a bit more grace, right? A bit of the grace that we are expected to have for y'all, right? When a woman says niggas ain't shit, I can either take that personally or understand some of the negative aspects of the patriarchy that I'm also against. And I can also say that, yeah, I'm against men who take advantage of women sexually or try to use their power to get, whatever the case may be. But when it comes to women, it seems like there's just a steel wall of, that's not me, that's none of my friends, I don't know nobody like that. And men never actually feel heard because we just get dismissed most of the time. So, unfortunately, the result of that, the result of years and years of that, is fresh and fit. And you know how I feel about the fresh and fit side.
Yeah.
But we have to be able to zoom out and conceptualize, okay, what's actually going on, as opposed to just, you know, throwing rocks and saying, man, these motherfuckers, this and that. What created them? And what, more than what created them, what created the demand for them? And when I hear some of these dudes' stories, listen, if I had been through half of what these dudes have been through, I would hate women too, rightfully. Just like a lot of women who hate men. And it's like when you listen to her story and she was raped by her own dad, she was this, you'll be like, oh, I understand it. But men, especially black men, have never had the opportunity to tell those stories. And even in the situations that they tell the stories, they're either dismissed or simply put on the man. And I think over time, you know, the snowball effect is fresh and fit. So if we want to prevent other fresh and fits, it's not just about demonizing fresh and fit. It's not just about castigating them and talking shit about them and the whole nine. It's about killing it. It's going to sound corny, but it's about killing it with kindness. It's about showing them that, no, women are not like that. Right? Even though your experiences have taught you that they are, and rightfully so, and they're valid, but okay, let's start walking it back instead of, nigga, you ain't supposed to, nigga, you supposed to, because that's what we're used to getting in my comment sections, in my Instagram sections, and you know how I am. You know what I'm saying? So if they saying this about somebody as articulate as myself, who's going to lay out all the nuances, just imagine what the regular, degular dude is going through. But a lot of times we kind of gloss over that in our critique.
Okay.
Let me bring this comment up so we can get to Deion Sanders.
I know, but right now this really though.
Hey, it's good. It's always gonna be good. All right, so V Bomba, I'm probably butchering that. I think the movement should go in the direction that Kevin was taking it and stay consistent with your ministry. Yeah, brother, I you know, I've been open about this. I wasn't a Kevin Samuels fan. I was a Kevin Samuels appreciator, right? So, you know, some of the my favorite Kevin Samuels video was a video he made before he was famous that most people wouldn't even know. But when after Average at Best, I wasn't watching streams. I wasn't in there. I'm just being honest. But yeah, I think Kevin Samuels is Kevin Samuels. I think there'll never be another one. And what I'm doing is, I think we had, you know, rest his soul, a similar vision of reconciling black men and black women. But I think our approaches are different. So, you know, all respect to what the brother did and what the brother represented. My path is a bit different. Afro Disciple, he also says, if you have heard black men weren't ish basically your entire life, raise your hand. That's real.
Well, okay. And if you've heard bitches ain't shit but hoes and tricks your life, raise your hand. If you felt like you wasn't anything worth but sex as a black woman, raise your hand. That's where all this black girl magic came from, because it's a fucking facade for us to build self-confidence, because for our entire life we felt like shit. We didn't feel beautiful. We wanted to change our weight, change how we look, change our hair, change our body, because we never felt good enough. As a black woman, we don't feel beautiful. That's why these girls are twerking and trying to get some attention, because in real life you feel overlooked. there's not been a time where black women just feel, I feel so beautiful and I feel like I can get any man and the world loves me. No, black women don't feel that way. So black women, raise your hands if you felt like you was only good enough for sex, or that your hair wasn't long enough or straight enough. Your nose wasn't straight enough. Your body wasn't perfect enough. You's too fat. Your butt too big. Of course, some black men like that, but when you go out into this working world, no, you don't. We both feel it. That's why I wish people would understand. Black women don't feel good either. And black men has heard it. Black women hear it too. Again, why I had to get out this space? Why in the world would I be in a space where my whole existence feels like I'm not worthy of anything? So no, this black girl magic is a facade to
Yeah.
get confidence in something that black women don't have. Black women are not confident in ourselves. We're not confident in our beauty.
I think you know what breaks my heart a lot of times when I when I talk to black women and when I hear some of these grievances is the kind of lack of education, and not necessarily because it's not our fault, right? The school systems kind of nitpicked what they wanted to pick because they wanted to train us, they didn't want to educate us.
Yeah.
So for instance, I think it would be powerful for black women to learn that somebody like Marcus Garvey in the 1910s, 1920s, he built a toy factory specifically for that reason, because he understood that a nation can rise no higher than its women. He understood that black women seeing themselves as beautiful, seeing themselves as worthy, and a lot of those predispositions are instilled when they're really, really young, right? So if the only dolls are white dolls, you're gonna think the ideal is to be white. And how does that trickle down into the way that you see yourself, the way you see other people? And how does that affect black men as well? Because black women build and destroy with their mouths, right? So unlike the experience of black women with black men, there's a uniqueness to the experience of black men with black women. I don't know if you saw the little mini documentary thing that I did about Terrence Crawford. His mom told him straight up, "You ain't gonna be shit."
Yeah.
Right? He is a testimony, but there are a lot of dudes who grew up like that and ended up exactly how their mom told them that they were gonna end up. But a lot of times, they don't even have the vocabulary or the awareness to articulate what happened to them. And sometimes it just comes out as, these bitches ain't whatever. But again, I think as people seeking solutions, it's important that we don't just dismiss each other's grievances because of our grievances, but spend some time to look into the uniquenesses of the grievances. Because, there's a difference between daddy wasn't there and mommy was there, but she made my life a living hell.
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of boys, a lot of their bitches ain't shit comes from their experience with their mom. But just like my clip where I was hypothetically talking about it, you get laughed out of the room. There's even by other men. Most of the worst comments that I've gotten under that clip are from men. That she should have swallowed you were from men. You should be grateful these niggas ain't built like they used to be. It's from men, right? So what I found, the uniqueness of it is like when women complain, even when it's invalid, there will be another woman to validate it for her. Girl, I understand, or I get how you feel. Even if it's even if she's complaining that she picked a shitty dude or whatever, there will be even the episode I'm telling you about with girlfriends, they were hugging her in the whole nine, even though she gave dude chlamydia. Now, with dudes, even when we make a valid point, if it goes against the status quo of sister, mother, goddess, your mother is untouchable, even other men will lambast you. That is a uniqueness that women don't experience at large.
Yeah. I think that we are women and men are a lot similar, um, especially Black folks in our experiences than we want to recognize. Because just like the mamas will fuck over their sons, you don't think mamas fuck over their daughters? I
Oh
remember
yeah.
my I remember my grandmother um, always liked my brothers more than me.
Hmm.
And, my mom told me, she was like, well, historically back in the day, older people always thought, why you have that gal for? That gal ain't gonna be able to do nothing. That son of yours is always gonna work and he's always gonna love you. Them gals is always gonna leave you. So historically, daughters wasn't treated well like the sons by their mother. Historically, when your mom dated, she would look at you sometimes as a competition, or that boyfriend or that new husband would try to molest and touch your child. Speaking for the daughters, so daughters wasn't like we just grew up with the most wonderful mothers too, as if mothers treated us like this and the sons was treated like shit. No, a shitty mom treated their child like shit. That's the son and the daughter. But a lot of us, as far as with Black women, we had it hard. It was the sons that got looked at. They're going to produce. They always going to love you as the mother. Why you had them gals for? I remember my grandma saying, them gals ain't going to be over there helping you out. Them boys is always them boys. See, my grandmother always called my brother them boys. And I
Right.
was always that gal. We are a lot alike. We have a lot of trauma together. And once we figured out that we're both fucked up, but we can, if we're together and we can help each other and we both need some healing. Like, it's not one against the other. We both got stuff to work through. So no, it's
I
not just
think
go ahead.
no, no. All I was gonna say was I think in my perfect ideal world, men would be better at articulating women's grievances, right? Men would be able to understand the things that women have experienced and the things that result from those experiences. And similarly, women would be able to articulate men's experiences. And I think because there's an inequity in the ability to articulate those experiences, it just ends up being comparison,
Yeah.
right? It just ends up being, well, mom was babying you, and she was hard on me, but her babying me made me turn out like this and the whole nine. And I think in an effort to better articulate men's experiences, I think the difference though with traumatized boy, traumatized girl, at some point it tends to be that the girl is able to find community, is is
Mm-hmm.
is is able to find refuge, whether in the church, which is predominantly female and female
Mm-hmm.
serving, whether it's in trauma bonding with other women who've been through what she's been through, and even again, even in the ways that her hurt hurts other people, there are
Mm-hmm.
still accommodations made, right? Like even the worst woman we could think of, it's still gonna be some simp who's gonna marry her if she looks good enough. On the flip side, men never get that release. Not only do they not get that release because they're vilified by the greater white society in a way that women aren't, because women are kind of looked over as like harmless, right? On top of that, and that's a strength and a weakness.
Mm-hmm.
But on top of that, even your own community, quote unquote, has no capacity to conceptualize their pain. So they definitely don't have a capacity to conceptualize your pain, right? And I think that kind of just grows over time. So what I would like to see is, instead of women spending so much time refining and articulating what they've experienced and all the things that are wrong with women, I would like to see women better able to articulate what men are experiencing, independent of them, just being able to articulate it. And similarly, I would like to see men able to articulate and advocate for some of the bullshit that affects women uniquely, black women uniquely.
Yeah.
Just like we saw the brother, his wife died of complications during childbirth, and now he's one of the foremost advocates for, kind of equity in the medical system around pregnant black women. Right? So, we have to be able to tell both stories and get good at it, so we're not just at loggerheads and going back and forth with each other.
Yeah. But, I see that and I agree with that. But again, talking about this particular space, it's either you are one side or the other. So if I'm an advocate or I have, I can talk great about this situation. However, I can still critique. So like there was a comment, Marcus, me talking about men and how I feel about the space. And of course he goes in and say, what about Cynthia G? What about this? It's like, I'm not talking about them. Like I can still love you, black man, and I can still critique you. Because the critique is out of love. Same on the flip side. I can still love black women and I can say that I love them, but I can still critique. But there's no space for us to be able to do both. It's either you better talk shit about black women or else. And on the other side, you better talk shit about black men or what else. Like even with you and with your page, and people were coming on your page just for you to show the worst of us, or black women would say something crazy and they got hard off looking at women look a silly fucking mess. But then once you said, no, this is not the page for that, they got upset with you. They were mad because this wasn't a page for you to bullshit and shit on women. And that's how I felt. I couldn't critique men. What about the women? No, y'all women do it. It's like, what? I'm not talking about them right now. I'm talking about this. And I couldn't have that flexibility. It was either all or nothing. And what they wanted me to do was continuously shit on women. And unfortunately, I'm not. I'm a very proud black woman. And being proud as a black woman doesn't mean I'm going to show the worst of us all the time. What type of what kind of bullshit is that? Just a whole bad women, bad. No, I love us, and they're good black women. I want to show that.
And I was actually having a conversation the other day because very often brothers will send me some of those street interviews where like women would admit like, would you rather date a 9-to-5 dude or a street hustler who sell drugs and this and that? And it would always be that the women would pick the worst option. And what I kind of explained to them, especially as somebody who's been behind the camera, is that the reality is the people who are the most enthusiastic about speaking up are typically not the people who are representative of the average person. These tend to be your, party, loopy, not necessarily the most intelligent person looking for attention. So unfortunately on the internet, those people become overrepresented. But the good women, the women who are actually thoughtful and considerate and actually kind, they are the ones who kind of walk by, because I've done street interviews. They're the ones who are, thank you, but no thanks. You know what I mean? I don't want to be on camera. I don't have a social media, the whole nine. So those people end up underrepresented on both sides. And I think as people who are doing this, it's important that we don't get swept away in the emotions.
Yeah.
And we're able to, like I said before, we're able to see the bigger picture. And my goal, the first live stream was that divester. The only thing I felt for her was pity.
Yeah.
Similar feeling towards Cynthia G. I have no anger towards her. I just feel bad.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that if we can get to that place in this conversation where women see these problematic men. And because you've become accustomed to reverse engineering the things that might have happened along the way in his life to get him to this point, similar to how we are called to do that as men. She's not just a hoe, she was raped at 3 years old, right? Men deserve that grace as well. And that's what I would like to see that I don't think is happening currently. I think that it's very easy for us to consider a Cynthia G and throw away the male equivalent of a Cynthia G. Even though when we actually start peeling back the layers, people have been through some mess.
Well, let me say this, because again, you said, and I see the chat talking about, men need a place to vent. But this is not venting that's going on. No one is talking about their grievances. What show have you seen where Black men are talking about, man, I was in this relationship, it was fucked up, and this happened to me. Oh man, that happened to you. Well, let me tell you how I got over it. Let me tell you this. Let me give you tips. That's not happening.
But again, just like I said, in this space, the most bombastic people are going to be overrepresented. The people who actually have the pain, they're not getting on these panels. I'm reading some of them in like I had a comment today. This dude, it was under the Jeannie Mai and Jeezy video. He was basically talking about how he married an Asian woman and found out she was a narcissist, and found out that her ex-husband actually committed suicide because she kept cheating on him. Now, is that brother gonna get on a panel in front of men who don't want to hear men vent and say that? Probably not.
But do you not see the contradiction? It's men need a place to vent, and so you create a space, but the space is not for men to vent. The space is just talking shit about women.
And that's why it's important, even myself included. It annoys me as well. You know that.
I know.
But it's important for us to be able to zoom out. The manosphere, the men on the internet, this shit is new. This shit is brand spanking new. Niggas are learning how to walk, right? niggas are crawling right now. And unfortunately, because of that, like I said, the message is all over the place. You got people who are actually doing productive things and trying to see like legislation change and trying to, DNA tests at birth and things that make sense. Yeah. And then you have the lambast women porn. Right. And I think, unfortunately, there is no this without that. I think logically we have to kind of take both. We have to mitigate the bullshit and make sure that eventually it shrinks. But with any change, with any revolution, even political stuff, there's always like the fringe that's on some bullshit. And I don't want a situation where because the fringe is so loud and obnoxious, that we use it to drown out the actual real stuff that's going on, and especially as it affects Black boys specifically. Because Black girls, they're going to be all right. There's a lot of momentum for Black girls right now.
Are we, though? It's not. Well, Black girls are not okay.
When I say they're going to be okay, I mean as far as survival. Not thriving. I don't think y'all are thriving. I think it's a facade. I think it's bullshit. But as far as survival, and I think it also speaks to women's advantage. I think you guys are just far more flexible than we are as men. Men are rigid, and there are pros and cons, right? We have to be rigid, running the battle and the whole nine, but rigidness breaks. And I think that's what's happening currently with Black boys. And part of the reason why Black women aren't all right is because Black boys aren't all right. But the vast majority of Black women think that funneling resources or funneling attention to Black boys takes something away from them, not understanding that if Black boys are better, ultimately it leads to Black women being better.
I agree with that.
But we're doing this shit as like a team sport, and I think that's why we're both losing.
We're fighting each other.
We are. We got to get to Deion Sanders. Hold on, let me get through.
I know. You been hours.
Let me get through the rest of the super chats. It's always good. You know that. I'll admit, Fresh and Fit do bring a lot of trash women on. But they've had doctors, lawyers, nurses, teachers, executives, etc. They sound like the 19-year-old, or they, etc. They sound just like the 19-year-olds, and most times they're worse. And me and you've talked about that's worth the conversation. Like, women tend to be a bit more monolithic in their thinking, even despite education and age and the whole nine. But the other point that I would like to make about Fresh and Fit, unfortunately, I think it's an indictment on us, right? If you are doing productive things, you do not get eyeballs in 2023. Like, I can look through my videos and I can tell you what works and what doesn't. And what's funny, if anybody's watching from Instagram, part of the reason why I post the most inflammatory clips of the 2-hour conversations that I have is because that's what performs. If you wanna grow on Instagram, I'm gonna give you a free tip.
Okay.
Post something that's gonna piss people off or that's gonna turn people on. 2 things.
There you go.
Piss people off and turn people on. If you wanna, but like I said, it's an indictment on us because then we just have a whole bunch of inflammatory stuff circulating. Now I'm hoping that it inspires people to click the link in the bio and go actually watch the video and understand that no, this was a nuanced, intelligent conversation. But unfortunately, I think there's more of a demand for pissed off bimbo women, confirmation bias, these hoes ain't shit and here's why. And similarly, these niggas ain't shit and here's why. But, we have to take some responsibility for that as well. Louis Conyer, he says, a black man can never have grace in a woman's eyes. Black men are human doings. We are only really seen as a human when we are dead. We are tired of being extracted for our resources. That's why they are mad. Short response, Corey.
Let me reread that. Hold on. Black man response. Can never have grace in a woman. Never, ever. Okay? We ain't never giving y'all niggas grace. Okay? Black men are human doings. We are only really seen as human when we are dead. We are tired of being... This is a deep.
There's a lot of validity to it. I'll be honest. I think I think, to be fair, this is about men in general. That comment is about men in general. I mean, I don't think it's because of women. I just think it's because of how our societies have been structured. For eons, your rank as a man is actually either based on you winning the birth lottery and you were born into royalty or some shit, or you being really good at avoiding death.
Do men give other men grace?
But that's not the point.
I'm just asking a question.
Yes and no.
Okay.
Do men give men grace in a catharsis way, like listening to our feelings and stuff like that? No, because I don't think that's necessarily what we need. But there's a way that a man, and this is why the shortage of like fathers and mentors is so so harmful. But there's a way that another man who's been through what you've been through or what you're going through, he can speak to you as I see you. You gonna be all right. That a woman can never do. Right? And I think, to kind of tie it into Deion Sanders, I think that's why he's found so much success. Because unlike any other coach in college, any other coach in the NFL even, this man has played at every level, at the highest level, and been the most successful, right? So he can speak directly to, and it might not even be a long, drawn-out, complex thing, but like he could look at you and be like, I see you. And that I see you is going to mean way more than Nick Saban.
Yeah.
Right. So in the grace department, again, I don't think men are looking for the grace that women are looking for. But we're just looking for understanding. And part of that understanding is like, if I was born 50 years ago, right, when World War II, whatever the case may be, how eager I was to die would dictate kind of how I was seen and revered by my community. Right now it's thugs, right now it's drug dealers and the whole nine, but like men who were audacious, men who were bombastic, men who were willing to crash out, risk it all. Those are the men who are celebrated, from knights to warriors, Shaka Zulu. Like, it's always been like that. But the result of that over time is that we don't know how to empathize with ourselves, and our women damn sure don't know how to empathize with us. So a lot of the stuff that he's ruminating over, you have no frame of reference. And it's not because you're a bad person. It's not because you don't care about him. It's just because we have never actually taken time to actually study men or consider life from men's perspective outside of just the advantages that we, quote unquote, enjoy. And I think that's why Dr. T.S. Johnson's work is so powerful, because he's actually creating the vocabulary for not just men to be able to articulate, yeah, this is good, but this is the bad that comes along with it. But also, he's giving women a glimpse behind the curtain. Like, he was talking about how a lot of women think that black men are privileged because they're men in the hierarchy, like intersectionality, but women are at the black women are at the bottom because they are women and they're black. When the reality is, a lot of times being a woman allows you to navigate in spaces that black men would be killed for being seen in. Because we are seen as a threat. At worst, you're seen as a nuisance. There's a difference. I can tolerate a nuisance. I'm not, especially, on a machismo level, I'm not intimidated by a black woman.
Right.
Push come to shove, I could choke her, snap her, whatever. But I'm intimidated as a black man, and that turns to he doesn't need to be here. Right? When you see the images of lynchings, number one, you cannot even remotely compare the number of men that were lynched to the number of women that were lynched. It's not even in the same stratosphere.
Right.
Number two, what consistently happened with black men who were lynched, they were castrated. There's some white folks right now who still got black dudes' genitals in a jar till this day.
Yeah.
Right? That's because that threat, we are inherently a threat. So a lot of the things that we're locked out of, that we're not allowed to participate in, that black women are allowed to participate in, it gets interpreted as black women want it more than black men, and then it creates that sense of superiority, whereas, we better than these men, when the reality is a lot more complex. It's a lot more insidious. You're allowed to move in places that I can't move, because as soon as I walk in the door, all eyes on me. Why this nigga here?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I wish we get to a place where a woman acknowledging that doesn't feel like she takes anything away from her experiences and some of the traumas and challenges that she has to experience as a woman. Let's keep it pushing. We got to get to Deion. A popular opinion, I think if Kevin was here today, he would have separated himself from this side of the internet by now.
He already did.
Yeah.
He did before he passed.
Better You says, where do you think the lack of confidence and self-assurance comes from? Are there signs a dad should look for? How to combat it? Lack of confidence and self-assurance. The first thing that pops in my mind is like, I think the modern day is more difficult, I would say especially for boys, in the sense that back in the day, or even like in the village or whatever the case may be, if your dad was a hunter, you would be a hunter. If your dad was a carpenter, you would be a carpenter. There wasn't any, what am I going to be when I grow up? You had a legacy to follow. You were already on a path. And your ability to execute that path that you already put on to the best of your ability was kind of the measure of man that you are in the lineage of other carpenters or other hunters that you come from. And you weren't starting from scratch. The problem now is, like, we are starting from scratch every single generation. And confidence, in my opinion, is a consequence of competence. right? So it's one thing if you're coming from 3 generations of carpenters versus if I try to learn how to make a table right now. You know what I mean? And I think the fact that dads are not in the home for a myriad of reasons, it kind of compounds that. So a lot of boys are growing up with a deep insecurity because they can't know who they are. They haven't been put on a path. There hasn't been a rite of passage. There hasn't been, a blueprint, right? And that's why mentorship and a lot of the things that we need to do with our boys are so vital. Do you have an opinion on that, Courtney?
No, you said it. You said it.
We almost at the bottom. All right. Dr. Tia San Johnson. Yeah, shout out to the GOAT. Mr. Smith, speaking of creators producing substantive content, Ms. Michelle could support black men by centering Dr. Johnson's work on her platform. What say you, Ms. Michelle?
Support black men by centering Dr. Johnson's work on her platform. Well, I'm really trying to make my platform for women. I'm tired of talking to men. I'm tired of y'all. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm tired of y'all.
Except
I
me.
really am. I mean, you get on my nerves too. No, I don't. No, I don't want to do that. No, I don't. I'm sorry. I support him. Alan that's his ministry. Okay,
So
I want to
this,
talk to the 40-year-old women. That's what I want to talk to.
I want you to do this if you can. This would be dope to me. So the interview of Dr. Johnson that I
Yes.
posted a couple of days ago. Have you had a chance to watch it?
I have not yet.
Okay, so basically the way that I did it was I had him explain black masculinist studies at 5 different levels. So he explained it for like women or girls, 7 to 12. Then he explained it like 13 to 19. Then he explained it for like 20 to 30. Then he explained it for feminists. Then he explained it for black mothers, right? So the title of the video is Send This to Black Women That Love You.
Okay, I saw that.
It would be dope if you got either women that hit each of those demographics together or, some of those demographics together. And y'all
Okay.
watch it and in real time stop it
30,
and comment
40,
on it
50.
and just I would be interested to see that. That would be dope. Because I think the way that he really elaborates on it and kind of builds on it, it's probably, I'm even getting comments from women saying like, yo, I have 2 sons and like, yo, this is massive. So yeah, if you could do that, that'd be dope.
I could do that. I'll do that for you.
Okay.
I will.
I trust you. I'm gonna be on the lookout. All right, All right, two more, and then we're gonna get to Deion. Damn, it's already been an hour. Ruminant Melanoid. He says, in the past we've accepted being utilities, but at least it was appreciated. Now it's expected off rip and taken for granted. That's a problem. I see what you're saying. Angel Griggs, he says, some of us were raised by grandfathers. We have elder wisdom and get the bombastic side eye. That's facts. Bombastic. All right, so, see, Marcus says, please do, Courtney.
Marcus,
I think that would be.
Marcus, you get on my nerves tonight, Marcus.
Shout out to Marcus.
I love you. Though.
All right, Deion Sanders. Where do you want to start, Courtney?
Okay, so before we got live, right? And,
Uh-huh.
All right, so we talked about Deion Sanders a few months ago when he left Jackson State. And you asked me what my opinion. I told you I was mad. And then you got mad at me, and then we was mad at each other.
Yes.
Yes. See, what the people don't know is me and our friendship.
Oh, yeah, we be falling out all the time.
We be falling out
all the time.
all the time.
Yeah. Okay, so from your perspective, because I'll articulate my perspective, but from your perspective, explain what it is or how it is that you saw Deion and why the move was so off-putting to you.
Okay, so, I'm if you don't stop, okay. I am an advocate of HBCUs because I am a graduate of Tennessee State University. So my HBCU, and I was so happy when Deion Sanders came to Jackson State because I said, finally, HBCUs can finally be on the map, can finally be looked at as relevant. And so I was so happy. And then when he left, I was mad. Absolutely, I was mad.
Yeah.
Hmm. Then you got mad at me.
So
But
okay.
okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No. Finish your butt. Finish your butt. I'm gonna
Okay.
jump in after the butt.
Um, I understood your take. And I think your take was pretty much how Jackson State treated him. And I also agree that Jackson State should have done the best they could do and put more effort in him staying. But, now that he's in Colorado and seeing what he's been doing, I mean, I'm going to support him regardless. I was hurt. However, there's a black man going in a white territory killing it. I cannot not support him. I can't.
Okay.
You like that, don't you? You're like, look at her coming around.
You can come. You gonna come around eventually. So the issue that I had with our conversation, and you're right. I should have absolutely called you.
Yeah, let's say that. Okay.
Yeah. No, you're
Majority of the
absolutely
time when
right.
we call out, it be
It's via text. Yeah.
message, right? He don't call the people.
So this is the issue that I had. So basically, Deion Sanders went to Jackson State. He stayed there, I believe, 3 years. I believe he was there 3 years.
Yeah.
Took him to the SWAC championship. Took him to the Celebration Bowl. I actually went to the Celebration Bowl, maybe not last year, but year before last, in Atlanta.
Yeah.
I think that when Deion came, because he was coaching his sons ever since they were little, but when he decided he was going to try to, pursue it on a higher level, a lot of the critique was he didn't have any experience. Right? He didn't have any experience. How is he going to get a coaching job? He doesn't have any experience. I assumed that the majority of that critique was coming from white people and white institutions, right? Because that makes sense, right? You're supposed to think that the black man is intellectually or dispositionally incapable. You're supposed to think that. Despite his qualifications or his achievements, you're supposed to think niggas ain't shit. I get that. But when black folks started regurgitating some of that rhetoric as well, and specifically black folks at a Jackson State, that's what started pissing me off, because it was framed as Jackson State gave Deion Sanders an opportunity, as opposed to Deion Sanders put Jackson State on the map.
Okay.
Right? And the problem that I had with that is, as black men, a lot of the chip that we have on our shoulder is that niggas ain't shit. Because it runs deeper than just like women saying niggas ain't shit. It's the world doesn't think niggas are shit. They think we are intellectually inferior. We're not even able to protect our women. We're not able to actualize any of our visions or whatever the case may be. So if anybody should believe in us, it should be us.
Us. Okay.
Especially if we are in some way, shape, or form overqualified. Deion Sanders is a Pro Bowler. Deion Sanders is an all-star baseball. Nick could have coached baseball if he wanted to, right? He's a legend at Florida State. He's a legend in the NFL. He's got a gold jacket, the whole nine. But for whatever reason, he's still unqualified, because that's our default with black men. So for me, when it got to the point where he had done all that he was doing for Jackson State, that he's now doing for Colorado, But despite that, his son's cars were still getting broken into. Despite the
Mhm.
fact that he brought three of his children to
Mhm.
a when it comes to facilities, a
Yeah.
subpar school, just because he was overly invested in its success, but to still be upset with the brother, I'm like, man, what does a black man have to do? Right? It's kind of like
Okay.
when people were burning LeBron James' jersey when he left Cleveland.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking like, yo, without LeBron, y'all wouldn't be shit. Like, thank you, LeBron.
Yeah.
That should be the energy. And I know, especially black men who found some success in their life, they have felt that sense of never being good enough. Never being good enough for a thank you. It's always, what have you done for me lately?
Mhm.
And for us to project that same energy to our greats, our legends, people that if they died tomorrow would rock the foundation of the world, I think it's in poor taste. So it wasn't just you, but generally the conversation I was seeing around Deion, like this nigga sellout, I'm like, you ungrateful bastards. Because if it wasn't for him, you wouldn't even know this school exists. And I understand, being an HBCU alumni, that's hard to hear because it's like, swag this and that. But let's be honest, let's be real. Because that same energy, he's bringing that energy to Colorado now, and it's being reciprocated, right? So we can continue, for example, to talk about
Okay.
how you know, men get some money or they become successful and they get a
And
white
they live
woman,
out right. They
right?
leave the hood
Or
and get a white woman.
we can actually talk about the fact that when that man gets successful, he's a target in the hood. When that man gets successful, instead of,
Young Dolph.
we're one of the only communities that, oh, you think you look good is supposed to be a compliment.
Mhm.
Who do you think you are is supposed to mean that you are somebody. Like, we don't even know how to see ourselves as great. We don't know how to celebrate the greatness in ourselves, let alone the people who've, like, statistically and objectively checked off the boxes. And unfortunately, it's not until these men go, even like we're talking about the passport bros, it's not until they take their talents to South Beach or Thailand or whatever the case may be that they actually get their flowers. And we can either keep shaming them or we can talk about it and make sure that the next NFL athlete, the next NFL great who looks at Morehouse or who looks at Tennessee State and says, you know what, I want to bring my resources, my know-how, and this, and that. He's not put off by the way that people are crucifying a man who did more than he was called to do in a way that was more beneficial to the institution than it was to him. He didn't make no money off of that.
I agree with what you're saying. I don't have pushback, but I'll go add to it from a different perspective, being
Okay.
that obviously I am HBCU to the death. Um, you know, affirmative action ending in these schools, Harvard and things like that. Um, I think me being proud of being an HBCU grad is because I'm invested in my community and I want it to be the best it can be for us, FUBU, for us, by us. And I was upset when Deion Sanders left because I just saw so much potential. Finally, HBCUs has we can now compete in sports, or we have someone, and our eyes are looking at us. Finally, we've been centuries for HBCUs, and finally, we have something. Now, I was pissed off at Jackson State because again, they should have treated him like a king, and they
100%.
didn't. Um, Now Deion Sanders coming to Jackson State, he should have known that Mississippi is the poorest state in the United States. Mississippi is the dumbest state in the United States. They're not smart and they broke. So him going there, that should have kind of been like, okay, well, I know what I'm getting into. When you go to a HBCU, unfortunately, the facilities are not the best. They're not. It's 106, I believe, HBCUs, and they are struggling. A lot of them lost accreditation. Some of them just finally got it back. So when you're going to a HBCU, these are already what you should know. Him going to Mississippi, he's going to be around some dumb broke folks with bad facilities. So because of that, for me, I'm just like, what did he expect going to Jackson State? Those three things were assurance: dumb, broke, and bad facilities. But he decided to go there. He signed a contract for 5 years. He reneged on the contract. He had a 5-year contract for $1.5 million, and he left within 3 years. So he left out on the contract. So he didn't stay the full time.
I would have left after year 1, but that's me.
Okay.
Keep going. Keep going. Keep going.
Okay.
Keep
But
going.
again, Tennessee State University, of course, you know, we got Eddie George. I love Eddie George. Okay. Heisman, Ohio State, Tennessee Titan, you know, or Houston Oilers, my guy. Number 27. He is the head coach. He's been a head coach since April 2021. We treat him like he
Garbage.
We do not. We
Y'all treat him good. Oh, okay.
No, that's why he's still there. We treat him like a king. And because of that, we, you know, a couple weeks ago, we went and played at Notre Dame, which is unheard of for HBCU playing in Notre Dame. Unheard of. I wanted that to be Jackson State legacy with Deion Sanders. And it wasn't. I blame Jackson State. But no, I was sad that he left. I really, really was.
I think oftentimes, because the masses never get to experience what it's like to like wear the crown or whatever, they assume that being the guy is the easy job. Sometimes being the guy is the most difficult job you can have, particularly because you get all the blame and none of the credit, right? It was set up in a way where if they were successful, it was because the HBCUs are successful. It gets spread out. But if they fail, it's because Deion Sanders, right? And to your point, I think if Deion was treated like Eddie is being treated at your school, he would have stayed the entire 5 years. Because I think when he came in, and again, I'm speculating, but I think he knew that Jackson was shit. He knew the facilities were trash. He knew that, you know, the players weren't up to par, whatever the case may be. And I think he sought that out intentionally to not just prove himself, but also set the example that we are not disposable as black people. We don't get to just turn a blind eye to the worst of ourselves, right? But it only works with a collective effort. There is no Jesus, there is no savior in our situation as black people, especially in the modern day. Like back in the day, it might have been a Martin or Malcolm, the whole nine, but now it absolutely relies on the collective effort, especially now that everybody thinks they're Malcolm and everybody thinks they're Martin. And I think over years of experiencing not just the disrespect, but the obstacles, and also the minimizing of his impact, I would have left after a year, me being honest.
Why? And let me make
because
okay.
I believe in covenants, right? You uphold your end of the bargain, I'll uphold mine. Jackson clearly did not. At different levels. Jackson clearly did not, and Deion clearly went above and beyond what he was contracted to do. So with that being the case, after a while, like, if you're just doing business that way or anything that way, you're going to drain yourself and you're going to end up being jaded. And I don't want to be somebody, a leader, whatever the case may be, who ends up jaded. So I think the best thing he did was leave. I would have left sooner, but I'm not as great as Deion Sanders.
Let me say this because, I have to, sometimes you have to be a little bit more clear for the people, okay?
Yeah.
I did not say that Deion Sanders should take disrespect, okay? I didn't say that at all. What I said is that when you go to a HBCU, you can expect things not to be like a PWI. Meaning financial aid is always, you're going to get messed up on financial aid. That's just HBCU. Facilities is not the best at HBCU. So when you go into these Black colleges, this is already what you know what's going to happen or what you're going to see. I don't know about him leaving within a year. I think Eddie George was on Shannon Sharp's podcast, and Eddie was like, when I went to TSU, the facilities needed some work, and I knew going to Tennessee State that it's going to be some hurdles that I'm going to have to go through. And I know this already before I took the head position as the head football coach. So he already knew. The thing is that he had alumni in the city had his back, which I don't think Jackson State did.
I think on top of that, okay, let's compare and contrast. Number one, Eddie George was a great player. He wasn't Deion Sanders.
Don't. You ain't got to.
Listen. I'm a fan of Eddie George. I was an offensive player. I was an offensive player back in the day. So I'm not even supposed to like put Deion, but Eddie George ain't. You know what I'm saying? Like Eddie George, like you could put Deion in some people's top 5. Eddie George ain't there. Let's just be real. That's number one. Number two, like you said, what Eddie was greeted with at TSU versus what Deion was greeted with at Jackson State. You know what I'm saying? It's not the same, right? Yeah. So he had a better team, right? Number 3, Deion is coming with 3 children. One of which is a Heisman candidate. Eddie George coming by himself.
Eddie George, his son playing. Don't do that.
Who's his son? That's
Eddie
the point.
Son. He's playing.
Eddie George Jr. I haven't seen him on nobody's list, but the point I'm making is like it was a lot more at stake for I wish Deion would have went to Tennessee State.
Okay, so here's the thing too, because of this whole debacle, right? And then it just made HBCUs look like we're just horrible, and it's just why would anyone want to go to a HBCU now? And it just, we struggle so much, and because of this, and because it wasn't kept in home, we put it on the world to see again. Talking shit about our culture. HBCUs is our culture. So we put it out here for the whole world to look at HBCUs as if it's not worthy enough to go to, and HBCUs is so bad. No, that's Jackson State. But come on over here to TSU. Go to FAMU. Go to North Carolina A&T. It ain't the same experience.
And I think that's where HBCUs drop the ball, right? Okay. Because I think the mistake we make as Black people sometimes is when we think about keeping it in-house, we typically think about sweeping shit under the rug. If HBCUs had come out and said, this is unacceptable, Jackson State is not operating to an HBCU level, that would have been able to separate HBCU's level of excellence to what Jackson State is doing. Reprimand Jackson State. Checks and balances within our institutions. The problem is, what we tend to do is, instead of being able to call out the bullshit that we do, we try to sweep it under the rug and then vilify the person who was actually affected by our bullshit. So even let's say JSU, they did exactly what they did, but the other HBCUs, Morehouse, Howard, said that this is unacceptable.
Yeah.
Deion Sanders, we would never treat you like this. Deion Sanders, we appreciate what you've done for not just Jackson, but HBCUs as a whole. When Ray Lewis thinks about becoming a coach, he now can separate JSU from HBCUs. But the fact that HBCU stood in solidarity in the critique of Deion Sanders being a sellout, that is what's going to run off potential. Absolutely.
You think HBCU is solidarity? I think what made silence was condoning it.
No, y'all motherfuckers weren't silent. Y'all motherfuckers weren't silent.
I mean, Jackson was very up in arms, but you didn't hear Morehouse, Bell. You didn't hear.
I heard people like yourself calling him a sellout generally because you took it as he broke up with
sellout. Did I? No, I don't think I called him a sellout. Did I? No, I didn't. Put receipts.
I got him.
I know you.
But you took it as he let down HBCUs. Right, you took it as he let down HBCUs. This is an L for HBCUs. How dare? Because even at one point I said nobody knew who the hell Jackson State was. You took it as, well, that means nobody knew who the hell Tennessee State was, and I wasn't saying that. But you were like, HBCUs are a small network, and this and that. So it was HBCU pride versus Deion Sanders at that point, which I think hurts HBCUs. And similarly, I think a perfect example of that, or a good way to juxtapose it, is like part of the reason why so many men on the internet gravitate towards the female creators who are calling women out is because we never see that happen. Women are usually standing in solidarity with women's bullshit. Like, women aren't making the distinction between this is a standard of excellence that women should operate by, and she did not follow that standard of excellence. Typically, it's excuses, and it's like, well, she was this, and that's why like they gravitate. So because it's like, oh, she's telling the truth. Or similarly, people like Derek Jackson and some of the panderers, that's why women gravitate to them, because they're like differentiating themselves. So similarly, I think we need to be able to check ourselves internally. And that doesn't mean we don't act like bullshit doesn't happen. It means that we have the intelligence and we have the honesty to call it out without it being personal.
Yes.
So
I agree. Now, but like you said, though, the women and the Derek Jackson and you finally, but the thing is that they don't even hold up to their standard.
Facts.
None of them do.
Facts.
Not a one. So now it's just validation. It's just people wanting to get validated by the opposite sex.
Facts.
And HBCUs, Deion Sanders was their validation. And once he left, they have no validation anymore. And so it was an L.
Right.
And they were pissed.
And that's why we have to put the ownership on our institutions. We cannot expect one man to sacrifice himself for the greater good. That's not sustainable. And I think that's been our issue as a black community. We've been reliant on one man sacrificing himself, whether it was Martin, Malcolm, Marcus Garvey, Noble Drew Ali. We've been so reliant on people sacrificing. And again, the only way it works is if people are shielded by our institutions.
Okay.
Right. When that brother who's got the gift of gab and he's gonna speak truth to power, who's going to pay his living expenses? Who's going to protect, like the Nation of Islam? That's the only reason Farrakhan is still alive. Who's going to protect him? But again, we talk so much about the lack of leadership without addressing the fact that we don't have the mechanisms in place to support or protect said leadership or incentivize
Yeah.
said leadership. We want this Jesus figure who gains nothing and is just doing it out of the kindness of his heart, and it's not
Okay.
going to work.
Well, any change, it has to be sacrifice. Talking about a Jesus figure, well, speaking of Jesus, he sacrificed his whole life to save the world. It is sacrifice. In order to change, in order for our community to be better, you have to sacrifice something. Going to an HBCU, yes, it was a financial huge sacrifice for Deion Sanders.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us was like, but we need you. We need HBCUs. So in order for things to change, you have to sacrifice. In order to
But
make relationships work, in order to make marriages work, it's a sacrifice.
But
There,
see, that's the thing, and I think that's the reason I wanted to have this conversation, because I think there's so much overlap with this and relationships, like black men and black women,
yeah.
because I think sacrifice is a consequence; it's not an incentive, right? If you're selling anything, you're not gonna come with I'm selling a Mercedes. I'm not gonna talk about the high insurance or the high cost of repair. No, I'm gonna talk about the 0 to 60. I'm gonna talk about the curb appeal and the whole nine. But unfortunately, I think as a community, we have, man, we have kind of been expected to eat chitlins and enjoy it. Right? Like sacrifice is not just expected for us, but we are encouraged to celebrate it. And then wonder why, as we're going into subsequent generations, dudes ain't trying to sacrifice no more. Because again, it's not sustainable. The only thing that's sustainable is quid pro quo. You do this for me, I do this for you. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. Part of the reason why some of these men are going overseas, part of the reason why my brother's 19 years old, part of the reason why there's a good chance that he might not end up with a black woman, even though I'm his brother, is because you can only talk that, community shit for so long. But when he compares his experience with black girls to white girls, black girls represent sacrifice. And white girls, despite whatever sacrifice
Explain
they might
that.
represent,
Okay.
despite whatever sacrifice they might represent, there is at least some identifiable benefit. But unfortunately, I think as a community, we're not spending enough time bolstering the identifiable benefits. We're just like demonizing and shaming people for not wanting to be a part of sacrifice for the sake of sacrifice.
Okay. You said sacrifice, you think it is a consequence.
It's a consequence, yeah, not an incentive.
I think that sacrifice is needed for change. So it's a process, it's a part of it. So losing weight, I have to sacrifice giving up my pizza and as a sacrifice.
Yep.
But that sacrifice has an end goal, and the end goal is what I'm looking forward to. So you have I don't
But see, even in that example, the end goal, not only is the end goal worth the sacrifice, it is greater than the sacrifice.
yes.
In a lot of these situations, kind of like the Deion Sanders situation, the end goal is not equivalent to the sacrifice.
So with Deion Sanders sacrificing a lot to be at Jackson State, the end goal is for HBCUs and our Black community in its totality to be better. So
But see,
HBCUs,
that's a
okay.
benefit to HBCUs. That's not a benefit to Deion Sanders. So my point is my point is this: we can either continue to appeal to people's higher self, or we can appeal to people's sensibilities. And our first rule, before we even learn about the Ten Commandments, as humans, is self-preservation. So if we want to create institutions that are sustainable, we must be able to intertwine and articulate the incentives with self-preservation. So even though this job is going to be hard,
Yeah.
You might miss out on this that you could get here, but here are the benefits. Here are the benefits that are clear, that are equivalent at least, or definitely greater, right? Like right now, I've probably got to spend the next 6 months getting a whole bunch of certifications to become a project manager. But when I become a project manager, I could be making multiple six figures. So despite the sacrifice, there is a clear benefit. Like, am I helping my company? Sure, but I'm getting paid. I'm getting paid.
Okay, I got you.
There's got to be a clear line, because again, and this you might not like this, but this is why I hate the be more like Jesus trope, because Jesus was God. I'm a human.
Okay.
So this idea that humans in mass should be sustainably self-sacrificial, you know what that tends to lead to? Bitter people. Because when you get on the other side, even like on a small scale with relationships, you're sacrificing, and then eventually you're like, what the fuck did I do all this for? You're going to be a bitter ass, resentful ass person. So instead of us seeking out Jesus in human beings, I think we need to be clear about, this is the cost, but this is the benefit. And the benefit will happen if the cost is paid. Simple. Whether it's for men, whether it's for women. So if you put in all this work to eat right and exercise, the result is you're going to be sexy. You're going to be able to attract better quality people. You're going to be able to do this, do that, live better, live longer. And I think as a community in general, not just with HBCUs, but as a community in general, we have a great deal of entitlement with each other's sacrifice.
Yeah.
As opposed to being able to clearly articulate, here's the bigger picture and here's how it'll benefit you. Whether it's you specifically, your legacy, whatever the case may be.
So I get your point. And I think, Deion, him sacrificing a lot to be at Jackson State, the benefit for him, there wasn't necessarily because of what he had to sacrifice. There wasn't beneficiary to him. So I get that. In order to make our community better, and the sacrifices that some of us have to make as far as volunteering, mentoring, giving back, what would be the incentive if it's not just necessarily, because it's not necessarily if I'm doing well, then what would be an incentive to sacrifice anything for the community?
I think number one, have you ever heard the saying, if poor people get hungry enough, they'll eat the rich?
I heard that one.
Yeah, so, part of the reason why I think men in particular should be concerned about the community is because you can raise your kids as good as you want to raise them.
Right.
But if the neighbor raises, excellent example, your neighbor not mowing his lawn can reduce your property value.
Going through that now.
Right. So this individualistic ideal that we have as a community, your neighbor not raising his kid right could fuck up your kid. That could be the kid that molests your daughter. That could be the kid that introduces your son to crack. So part of the reason why I think men in particular should be community focused and this and that is not just an altruistic, what would Jesus do thing, but it's also very practical. I don't want you to fuck up my property value by your bad decision making.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think maybe I'll do a case study about this, but I think altruism is a lie. I think people doing good for goodness sake is a lie.
Really?
I think absolutely, because I think that even if your incentive is to go to heaven, you're doing it for a reason. So instead of us just relying on fairy tale reasons or, it's the right thing to do, I want it to be practical. I'm doing this because of this. And there could be some goodness to it. It makes me feel good as well. But let's be clear on the benefit on both sides so we can sustain this thing that you're doing. and we can also inspire other people, right? So with Dr. King, it wasn't that it wasn't that the Edmund Pettus Bridge situation pulled at the heartstrings of white folks and made white women cry when they were watching it. No, it was that it made America look bad internationally.
Yeah.
Y'all are these crusaders of peace. Y'all are the Superman of the world. But this is what you're doing to black folks in your own country? Fuck all that. So again, instead of us spending all this kumbaya time and like time focused on appealing to people's hearts, no, we got to appeal to people's sensibilities and spend more time articulating, clarifying, and also cultivating clear win-win situations, whether it's with Deion and Jackson, whether it's with black men and black women, whether it's with a relationship. This is what I will do for you. This is what I expect you to do for me. Is this fair? No, it's not. I want more of this, or you don't have to do that, and then we can negotiate. But just I'm a good woman just because I'm a good woman, I'm a good man just because I'm a good man, it's not sustainable.
Okay.
I'm just, like my big thing is like we give ourselves too much credit. People are not as moral as we think. People are not as good as we think. I also don't think people are as bad as we think. But I think what's sustainable, whether we're talking about repairing the black community or whatever the case may be, we have to be on the same page practically. Because just blackness is not going to unite us. You see the FBA, non-FBA, you see Africa and all that stuff. That's not, there has to be a clear, this is how it's going to benefit us as a collective. And I want us to start spending more time having those conversations instead of just my brother this, my brother that.
Yeah.
Because when shit flips, you the ops now. Because these white folks that are working together, the Berlin Conference is a perfect example of that. They started working together after killing each other. But they got to the realization that, oh no, we can actually make more money together, working together, than we can just fighting over which African country to rape. But as Africans, as black folks, we think, oh, I gotta like you.
Yeah.
Oh, we gotta have had, grew up together, you know, sandbox and shit like that. And it's like, yo, that's not sustainable. It's not. It's not gonna work in the long run. And for us to teach our children that they should only do good for goodness sake, that's nice. But when good becomes blurry,
Yeah.
they need to have a mechanism to be able to make clear and concise decisions that are not just beneficial to other people, but beneficial to themselves.
So, going back to Deion Sanders.
Let's talk about it.
And so at Colorado, so he's getting still a lot of heat there. Still from black folks and some white people too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Now the white people is saying stuff about him. Is it because it's still the black man and his audacity to be prime time?
One of my boys said something that I don't even know if he realizes how deep that shit was. He said that, shout out to Struggle News Network. He said, we're the only ones who don't know it's a race. Like they call it race. It's a race. This is a competition. This is an international competition. And we're the only group who does not view it that way.
Wait a minute. Say that one more time. That just, wait a minute. We call it's a race.
The brother said we're the only ones who don't know it's a race. Yes.
That just blew my head.
Yeah, I mean, what's her name? I can't think of her name. But she talked about it a lot where damn, it's gonna bother me. Hold on, let me
put that in my notes.
Yeah, no, the brother blew my mind with that one.
That is deep.
Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, you know, she talked about how Caucasian genetics are inferior. Just genetically speaking, they're inferior. And the number one threat to Caucasian genetics are black genetics. Our genes are dominant, theirs are recessive. That's not to say black people are better than white people. That's just to say if you add some black to white, the white no longer exists after a while. And it's not a conscious fear that white people have, but it's an unconscious.
I think it's they know.
I don't think it's conscious. I think it's an unconscious anxiety, right? Just like they've been scared that at some point black people are going to rise up and pay them back for all the. That's why they were scared of the Panthers. That's why they were scared of the Nation of Islam and the whole nine. White people are a global minority. They're the majority in America, partly because they pad their stats with like Egyptians and shit like that. They call them white. But globally, they're the minority. So that creates a deep insecurity. And guess who usually has some of the deepest insecurity? The best fighters. One of the most insecure people in the world is Mike Tyson. That's why he used to knock everybody out, because the nigga was scared. White people are scared. Now, the problem is, we as black folks, we think that we can appeal to their feelings. And we forget that we cannot appeal to their sensibilities. Their sensibility is to survive.
Yeah.
The threat to that survival is me. So whether it's on the football field, whether it's, genetically me sleeping with their daughter, whatever the case may be, they're afraid of their annihilation. And I think that the quicker black folks can wrap our heads around that, a lot of this stuff won't surprise us, right? Like they had to, at some point when the leagues got integrated, they had to realize that, hey, black folks are the superior athletes, but guess what? We're still going to coach them motherfuckers. Now what they got? Now what they got? And now they got to pick at, oh, he got glasses on, he's dancing, and this and that. They ain't got nothing else. So instead of us wondering why do white folks not like Deion? No, we need to protect Deion because they're not supposed to. They need Lane Kiffin. They need the Alabama coach, whatever his name is. They need them because if after the coaching jobs go, then black dudes are going to start owning these teams.
I was going to say that. Again, where I'm kind of, again, I'm mad about Jackson State. However, I support Deion Sanders because now in this new venture that he's doing in Colorado, like I said, last year they was 1-11, and now they're 3-0.
3-0.
Yeah.
I don't care if that brother don't win another game, man. Salute. He's a legend, and we need to give him all his flowers.
Yeah.
Because for me, and when I was reading about Frederick Douglass, a lot of us know that Frederick Douglass was a prolific speaker and the whole nine. But actually, his biggest impact were the pictures that he took. Frederick Douglass is one of the first black men who took pictures like a white man. He looked directly in the camera. He was dressed to the nines. He was regal. He had his shoulders back, his head up. And that symbolism alone empowered and galvanized so many black folks.
Yeah.
So for me, I think the outside of just, black excellence being a whole bunch of niggas wearing suits, the symbol of black male audacity, like I'm going to do what I'm trying to do and nobody's going to stop me, I think that is the most powerful tool that we have. And unfortunately, this is where the women come in.
What do we do?
Our women have been socialized with the reflex to minimize that audacity. Like I said earlier, you think you look good. Who you think you are. That comes a lot. Where you think you that comes from our women. So there are a lot of potential Deion Sanders that never got the opportunity to even have the audacity to dream that big. Because the first place they're supposed to get audacity from after their father is their mother. Their father gonna give them the genetics, but their mother gonna give them, baby, you could be whatever the hell you want to be. But unfortunately, and what's her name? Dr. Joy Dugree, she thinks that it's linked to the plantation with, black mothers not wanting their sons to stand out so they get sold off.
Mm-hmm.
But we have taken it into the 21st century.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to start thinking about how we are creating or potentially stifling other Deion Sanders because it's bigger than just him. And I
Yeah.
think the better that we protect him and the better that we celebrate him, the more we're incentivizing other potential Deion Sanders, whether it's with potential coaches, the next few years, or just in the distant future, boys to be like, oh no, I'm gonna win all these awards, I'm gonna do all these great things, but just like the Sankofa bird, I'm gonna look back, I'm gonna find me a Jackson and see what I could do there. I'm gonna find me a Tennessee State and see what I can do there. But if we forget Deion for a second, if we
Mm-hmm.
drop the ball that is Deion Sanders, there will be no other Deion Sanders. So this responsibility is on us.
I agree. And I think um the it's very powerful right now with Deion Sanders because he is a head coach. And so if he is successful, what does that mean for other huge colleges? Not even just looking at HBCUs, which of course we know I'm going to support, but even the Notre Dames and those the Florida States. What would it look like if they start looking at head coaches and black men start getting those positions because you know that we don't? So I'm in agreement with you. Again, I support him. My feelings was hurt. I done moved on. Okay. Now I'm like, I want him to do well because now he's the coach. And if he does good, then that makes it an opportunity for other schools to get black head coaches. And then we're not just players. Now we
Yep.
running some shit. You know what I'm saying? And that's what
Facts.
I really want us to start looking at. Just fuck this, just you want to be a player. You want to be a coach. You want to own this shit.
Right.
That's why I was so big and I love Ice Cube and his big three. I wish that we supported that more. Start, getting our talent in black owned places again. That's why I was hurt about HBCUs, But however,
Yeah.
so I get it. You
I'll,
know,
I'll, I'll, I'll say this too. I think black business, supports itself with black dollars.
mhm.
I think black enterprise supports itself with white dollars too. Like the
Yeah.
goal should be making money from
And
them
for
too,
making money, period. Right.
right?
Not
We
just
shouldn't just relegate ourselves to the what is it 1.5 trillion the
yeah.
15 trillion or something that's the black dollar.
Mhm.
So in these moments when those feelings want to kick in and be like, this nigga didn't stay the whole 5 years, we need to be able to zoom out, see the bigger picture, and understand that Deion Sanders, and that's where I'm at. If God forbid this man couldn't coach another day in football, he needs a BET award, NCAA and AACP award, NCAA award. The man is good.
Yeah.
And as black folks, we need to be able to celebrate our greatness outside of the purview of white folks. Because unfortunately, what tends to happen, because we are so terrible at identifying and celebrating our greatness, we also only validate ourselves by white acknowledgement of our greatness. I'm
I
not a
agree.
real artist until I win a Grammy. I'm
Right.
not a real actor until I win an Oscar.
Yeah.
But because we haven't built up our institutions, because we are so down, dug in on critiquing ourselves, and we don't know how to acknowledge our greatness, we don't, like white folks can make just a white canvas and they can explain all the nuances and be like, the artist was this, and we're gonna sell that for $20,000. But black folks, you gotta paint the moon, the sky, heaven, and this, and it's still like, well, my homeboy down the street, he could paint it better, faster.
Yeah.
Like we are so accustomed, and we might call it the dozens or all kinds of shit. We're so accustomed to minimizing ourselves. And then later down the line, wonder why black men or black women or black kids have such an affinity for communities outside ourselves. Because that's the first time they can lay their hair down. And that's our fault. That's not theirs.
Yeah. So did you see what Charleston White was saying about Deion Sanders?
Yeah, Charleston White isn't serious. Charleston White, Charleston White is a shock jock. So he says things, and I think again, he's an indictment on the larger social media space because if he
Mm-hmm.
wasn't saying all this crazy stuff, he wouldn't have a platform.
Fact.
I believe after hearing some of his actual like serious points, I think that he's doing it for a greater purpose,
Which would
and
be
he does a lot of community work. Right, he
okay.
speaks at prisons. He does work with kids and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. So he uses the fame to fund that. At least that's what he's saying. I don't know him
Mm-hmm.
personally, but if that's the case, it gives. But again, I think it still goes back to why do I have to post the worst part or the most inflammatory part of my 2-hour conversation for y'all to come over here and watch it,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because we can keep blaming me, right, or Charleston White, or we can audit and think as a community, why is it that we don't support our intellectuals for being intellectuals?
Mm-hmm.
Like he talks about all the time where like when he was marching and when he was outside the house of a police officer who just shot a kid, nobody was around him.
Yeah.
But now when he's saying, yeah, I rape white women and all this bullshit, now he's got 100 and something thousand subscribers and followers and this and that, and making money enough from speaking engagements to fund what he's doing. So if that's the case, God bless the brother.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't be so emotional that we allow what shit looks like to distract from what shit is.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we need to get to a point where our intellectuals don't have to cosplay as as
Okay, are you
Uncle
calling
Ruckuses.
are you calling Charleston White an intellectual?
I think that again, if when he's been sober minded and talking, because there's some interviews where he's not on the bullshit, he's just talking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If that's true, then yes. If it's not true, and he's just trying to explain away the bullshit, then he's a fool and he's an idiot. But again, if it's true, and he's just, kind of like Kevin Samuels, average at best, all that stuff. If the internet didn't reward that type of behavior, I don't know if Kevin Samuels would have been doing that. But unfortunately, despite the fact he was on the internet 5 years before that, it wasn't until he took the abrasive position that you start getting clicks and you start getting views and you start getting this. So do we blame the restaurant or the appetite? Do we blame the supply or the demand? Right? So I think there are two conversations. Like if I met him, I can't really say stop doing what you're doing because he's just talking.
Mm-hmm.
But if he's actually doing the substantive work that he talks about doing, then, hey, I understand. It's unfortunate we have to go this route, but I get it. I don't know how to do that. I wish I did. But, I think we need to look at ourselves and question why we force people to have to do the clown bullshit to actually get some traction.
Now, just so I'm clear, what did you see or what did you hear that Charleston White said about Deion Sanders? I want to know if we're talking about the same thing.
Didn't he say he hope he lose? He hope his son get hurt. He hope
He put
said
out
all kinds of shit.
$20,000. He said, "I would be willing to give somebody $20,000 to hurt Deion Sanders' son."
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And this is the intellectual.
But again, like I said,
This is cosplay.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. I think people like Charleston White spark three different conversations. I think they spark the conversation of the supply and demand. I think that's worth a conversation. I think they spark the conversation of should we be so easily moved by rhetoric, by words? I think that's a conversation.
Yeah.
And I think the last conversation is what it looks like versus what it is. So again, because I don't know him personally, for instance, there was one time he was talking about some of the work that he does with kids, and he said that part of the reason he wanted to go to prison when he was a kid is because he saw that only the gangsters who came home were celebrated. The college kids weren't celebrated when they came home.
Yeah.
You know, he talked about part of the reason why he was so belligerent and bad as a kid is because he wanted some of those male authority figures to go home with him. He wanted a daddy, right? So for him to have the ability to, on the ground level, articulate some of those nuanced feelings that boys are having, now he has to do all the theatrics to be relevant. That's powerful. Again,
Yeah.
if it is leading to actual, like if he's actually speaking at the prisons and actually working with boys and actually doing rehabilitation programs and all that he's saying, then we have to look at why are black folks so triggered by words? You could move them this way by saying this, move them this way by saying that, because that might be the larger indictment that he's trying to levy on our community. But again, it could all be bullshit. I don't know. But I just think there are those three conversations we should be willing to have as a community.
Yeah. I got a homeboy to play for the Raiders. And I was talking to him about, you're doing this with you. You know, he's a fan of yours.
Hey.
And he was like, you know, Deion Sanders actually, the money that they are giving him, I think it was like $5 million or something. He was like, he underbidded himself as far as his contract.
Facts, 100%.
He was like, I mean, merchandise went up 800% since he's been there.
800%, yeah.
800%. His glasses. First 3 days pre-sold, 5 million glasses by itself pre-sold within 3 days. So does Deion Sanders know his worth?
Or have we grown accustomed to a paradigm where black men have to overachieve to be appreciated?
Yeah, you do. You do.
That's the question. Have we grown accustomed to, you have to go above and despite what you deserve, whether it's with women, whether it's with universities or whatever the case may be, you have to go above and beyond. Because there's some head coaches right now that their job before that was being an assistant coach. Did they play past college? No. But Deion Sanders, despite his resume as a player, despite what he did at Jackson State, despite what he did at high school, he's still an unexperienced coach. Now, white folks are clear on why that is, because ultimately they don't see, you can never be good enough as a black man.
Right.
Outside of fucking good and running fast and being strong. Now, are we willing to see ourselves in a lens outside of that? Because they taught us how to see ourselves too.
Yeah.
So that's why, you know, I get so upset and disappointed when we are the loudest voices in those critiques. Because again, I expect them to say, grown folks take their glasses off and their hat. I don't expect us to say that. I expect them to say, you didn't finish out your contract, you don't finish anything. I didn't expect us to say that. We were supposed to see the big picture. We were supposed to see what he was up against. We were supposed to see the fact that he's underbidding himself with Colorado. What the hell was he doing at Jackson State?
Sacrificing. He was sacrificing.
I just want to see more Deion Sanders, and I know that it's not going to work if we keep running them off. If you know, like we need to be able to look Deion Sanders in the face and say that. And this is what I thought HBCUs did to students, because I spent the summer at Morehouse. We need to be able to look them in the face and say that we don't have the best facilities. You know, you could probably go to a better, more known school, you know, better equipment in the whole nine. But guess what? They will not be able to treat you half as good as we will. So despite our deficiencies, we will fight tooth and nail to get you whatever you need and make sure that you know your worth. Now, we tend to take the posture of, I'm doing you a favor. Good man, I'm doing you. You should be glad that you get to deal with my 20 years of trauma and baggage. You should be happy that I'm giving you this used vagina and all the issues that now you have to deal with and fixing my credit you should be happy because I'm a great woman. As opposed to saying that despite my flaws that are clear and apparent, it's not a secret, nobody's gonna go as hard for you as I am. Because that moves away from entitlement. That moves away from entitlement to, all right, let's make a deal. Because we do that with corporate America. I know I don't check off all the boxes on your job description. I know that there's some candidates with master's degrees and doctorate degrees, but guess what? If I don't know the answer to a question, I'm gonna find out in 24 hours.
There you go.
We understand how to do that there, but like for us, because we don't see value in ourselves, we don't think it's even worth that conversation. Nigga, you should want to be over here. Mm-hmm. You see our band? Their band ain't like our band.
That was we did say that.
So that's my thing. Whether because even like with this channel, that's a question that I get a lot. You know, since I'm not a fan of Passport Bros or SYSBM, some brothers ask me the fair question like, do you expect black men to just settle for single mothers? Do you expect black men to tolerate bad behavior? Do you expect black men to just sign up for being cursed out and the whole nine or trauma dumped on? And I have to articulate that, number one, no. I expect you to do the work so you can find those gems of black women that are out there and exist. But number two, I want you to be able to see the bigger picture. I want you to be able to see that fortunately or unfortunately, as black people, what you do matters to me. Especially in the context of this country. Maybe once it's Wakanda, you could do your own thing, it don't matter. But in the context of this country, you could fuck up my property value, proverbial property value, right? And we need to care on that level, not just the spiritual, airy-fairy, hoity-toity shit that we usually talk about.
Yeah. I hear you, Alan.
You gotta be on my soapbox.
I'm just listening. I'm just like, okay.
Got me on my soapbox. So what are your? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, we could have had this conversation, but a long
last
time
year.
ago.
This was last year, wasn't it?
Was it last year?
When did he leave Jackson?
I guess so. Maybe it was.
Yeah, because No, it was earlier this year because he left Jackson after the championship to come to announce to the players that they were going to switch stuff up. So yeah, I think it was earlier this year. But so what are your final thoughts? You ain't gonna make me do a 3-hour stream. I told the people I'm not doing that anymore. So what are your final thoughts so we can close?
You told the people
this thing on out.
Well, I mean, we talked about a lot. But as far as like with Deion Sanders, my hurt has healed.
Yeah.
And, I do see the bigger picture. And I support Deion Sanders. I hope he is 11-12-0. And I think that he needs to be protected. 100%. And his sons, for sure. No, he needs to be protected. I am very proud of him. I really am. So
to further speak to his character, his second son, Shiloh, didn't actually want to leave Jackson. Shiloh was actually going to stay back.
Yeah.
And he was going to ride out with the HBCUs and the whole nine. But things were so bad that he ended up transferring. So again, we can continue to single out these people who refuse to be martyrs because I don't want to fucking kill myself. Martin Luther King also said, I have no martyrdom syndrome. We never talk about that aspect of him. He literally gave a speech, said, I want to live a long time. But we only focus on the I have a dream and the fact that he ended up dying in the line of duty. But like we cannot expect superhumanness from black men. We're human and we're looking for peace. We're looking for tranquility. We're looking for sustainability. We're looking for deals that make sense, not just for us or the person or the institution that we're giving ourselves to, but generally. So if we want black men to be on the front lines, we want black men, how are we rewarding that behavior? Whether it's women or whether it's black institutions. And I think we need to be able to zoom out enough to have those conversations, because for us to just continue to lambaste and beat down black men, oh, you won a Super Bowl, you didn't win two Super Bowls. You got the straight A's, you didn't get Dean's List. Like, at some point, niggas just gonna check out. And we're seeing it happen with Gen Z.
Yeah.
These kids are watching how, like, it's all bullshit. You're never gonna be good enough, so why try? You know, so if we want to reverse these things, we need to save our critiques for our institutions. We need to save our critiques for our groups, right? And not be so individualistic in our analysis. So this Saturday, Deion is playing. I'm not even saying Colorado. Deion is playing.
Deion playing them. Not everybody else.
Deion and his sons are playing Oregon, which is I think Vegas has them 20-1. Because Oregon is a top 10 school. Like, it is next to impossible for them to win this game. I'm gonna be watching.
I'm gonna be watching.
Yeah, I think as black folks, if we want to see more leaders, if we want to see more revolutionaries and the whole nine, whether on a Deion scale, on a civil rights scale, like, we need to support what we want to see more of instead of just critiquing. And everybody got something to say, but nobody's making the sacrifices. Nobody's even sat in that seat to know what it feels like, you know. But yeah, that's the bigger thing for me. Final thoughts, Courtney?
I made some notes. I'm looking at my little notes, but I think you covered it. I think we covered it. I don't think I have nothing else to say. No. My final thoughts is like, I support it. I support it. I know you thought I didn't.
Appreciate you, darling.
You proud of me?
I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you.
It is what it is. It is what it is.
I'm proud of you. I appreciate you, darling. Thank you so much. We're going to have to do another stream.
I know. I missed you, Alan Pooh.
I miss you too. Come up with a title or a topic, and we're going to do it on your channel this time.
Okay.
Whatever you like.
Whatever I like.
Whatever you like.
I'll think of something. For us to do.
I'm scared of doing that. I was gonna do a review of the whole Kirk Franklin thing, but Dr. T. Hassan, he did apparently he did something on it and it got removed by YouTube. So I don't know if
the movie. I mean, it's copywritten, so you can't use the footage. So did he show a clip on it?
He's usually pretty good about that. So I didn't see it. Like, all I saw was like him saying that it had been removed. So that's why I was kind of wary of it. But I think that is definitely worth the conversation, particularly as it relates to, black men and their relationships with their mothers. That shit pissed me off.
That I told you.
That shit pissed me off, man.
When I texted you, I said I was crying the whole time, like tears.
I was too angry to be sad. That's the thing.
But you remember, there was a clip of Iyanla Vanzant, and it was reminiscent of that to me because there was a mother on there that lied to her two daughters, saying that their father molested them.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and it was a lie.
Yep.
And she still continued on with the lie. So that just kind of reminded me of the Kirk Franklin. And the fact that she's could 2 DNA tests and still couldn't admit it.
You know what? The first thing that pissed me off before that even was his aunt. His aunt
Oh,
pissed me
oh,
the hell off
oh, what you said was
because
aunt. That he had to say,
because this is a 57-year-old Grammy Award winning millionaire, and he is still a little boy in your
still
eyes.
acting, still treating him like a child. He said
Oh
that.
man, oh man, and we have to tell the truth. That's unique to us. That's
Black
unique to
men.
us. That's unique to us. Why? I mean,
You
at the same
think
time,
is it unique to Black men, or is that how mothers treat their sons as their
I
child all the time? Because
I think I think there's a little bit of that, but I think that extent is unique to us. I think white white mothers on average, again, because there's also not that deficit of masculine energy. She knows how to allow her son to transition in a way that I don't know if Black mothers know, right? So yeah, I think we gonna have to address that.
you gotta talk about that.
Yeah, that shit pissed me off.
That yeah.
But anyway, let me let you go. We coming on 2 hours and 30 minutes. Love you, Courtney. We'll talk later soon, okay?
I love you, boo. Thank you for having me. This was
Absolutely.
awesome, honey bunny.
I enjoyed it. I think there's some gems here.
Yeah. All right.
Appreciate you, darling.
I'm logging off.
All right now. As always, appreciate y'all for hanging out. Let me see if I missed any Cash Apps. Please consider hitting the Cash App. More of that money goes directly to the ministry. Shout out to Alex. Alex says, salute, brother. He sent a $25 Cash App. But yeah, thank y'all so much. Again, don't forget to hit the like button on your way out. Make sure you watch the Tiasan Johnson video. I think that might be the most important video I've released on this channel. If it's not the most important, it's definitely top 3. And do as the title says, send that to every Black woman who loves you, and Black girl as well. If you have daughters, nieces, students, he breaks down the nuances of the Black male experience. Because ultimately, we need to be able to understand each other if we're going to protect each other and we're going to pair with each other. We can't just expect to bond ourselves to people we don't like or we don't understand and then just white knuckle it in the name of community building. It has to make sense. So yeah, make sure y'all check that out. If you haven't already, follow on Instagram, hit the Cash App. That's the best way to support the ministry. Send me recommendations as well, since I'm doing the review or revised videos. Those are a bit easier to do because I just watch it and stop it and talk. As long as I don't get copyright strikes. But yeah, appreciate y'all. I'll see y'all again soon. Have a good night.